And it's still, there we go. All right, we're live.
Hey, what's up? Here's another, what is it?
Flex for Life
No,
podcast.
yo, messing with you. Hey, what's up? Here's another segment of Flex for Life podcast with my co-host Greg. We have some interesting things that we want to discuss today. First to be kind of fun. Second's going to be a little intense. First going to be just different ways of dieting. And normally you want to kind of creep into a diet, get settled into it, and then drop the hammer. You know, I know there's been times where I've dieted and I just dropped the hammer and just like, there's no easing way into this, just get into it. And we all had thought there was a certain way that you can do it, but now we actually have research showing which is better and why you will fail at one. And the second thing is we're going to talk about the latest and greatest things that are going on in open tennis. I'm sure all of you heard about the argument that's been going on and kind of racial comments that's been made, which is sad. So sad to see. I'm a little thrown off. I mean, tennis is probably the most regal sport there is, but I guess hate is everywhere. So anyway, without further ado, Greg, why don't you take it on?
All right, we'll talk about the one that's less controversial first, or maybe this one's actually controversial also. But like Flex said, what would work better? Just jumping straight into the diet. We all know that to lose weight, we have to create that calorie deficit, so eating less than you used to and adding some activity. But what would work best? Just going straight to rock bottom where you want to, at the rock bottom number of calories you can eat and just go cold turkey per se, or easing into it. Luckily enough, rather than go through trial and error on your own, we have some research. Vargas Molina actually had it published just a couple years ago in the European Journal of Applied Physiology. The study was the efficacy of progressive versus severe energy restriction in body composition and strength in concurrent trained women.
Man, those some words to get out there.
Yeah. And here is actually the study. So this is what I like about this. Again, it is peer-reviewed, published in journals. So this stuff, we really can't argue with it. And it's, randomized, controlled, everything else. So they took two different groups. One was labeled as an aggressive dieting group. Then there was a more moderate group. The big difference was the aggressive group, and this is the one that Flex put himself in a couple of times, and he ended up regretting it in the long run. What they did was they took fat-free mass weight. So they did body composition on all the people involved. They subtracted out the body fat percentage and came up with their fat-free mass. They took that number, and for the aggressive group, they allowed them to eat 25 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass. That's where they're going to end up. They did the entire 14-week study that way, right? And they still did their workouts. Both groups did the same workout. The second group they labeled as moderate, they started them out at 40 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass. And then every 2 weeks, they lowered it a little bit more until the final 2 weeks, they got to the point where they're at the same 25 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass, right? So they gradually lowered the calorie. They started out lower anyway, but they gradually lowered it every 2 weeks after that. So if we're to break that down, just to kind of give you an idea, you took the average person, in this case, women, 145 pounds with a 22% body fat, which is actually that's above average for a lot of people in the United States right now. The aggressive group would start out with 1,300 calories a day for the entire 14-week study.
Wow.
The other group would start out at 2,320 calories a day because they had the 40 calories per kilogram. So
is that like you can just have a hamburger and you're done?
I didn't read the study close enough to
No,
actually find out.
I know.
I'm assuming, again, if you really look at it, you can make the case that it's just calories, right? Calories in versus calories out. You create that deficit, you add exercise, you're going to get weight loss. Now, if everything was perfect, you would probably assume, since we're taking in less calories right off the bat with the aggressive group, that they would lose more weight. right? Trick question. Everybody out there knows that that's not the way it's going to go. The moderate group, the one that progressively lower their calories over the 14-week period, lost on average 3.75 pounds of fat. So not total weight, but fat. They might have lost a little bit more because I'm sure some water weight and muscle was lost in the process as well. The aggressive group lost an average of 2.6 pounds. So over a pound less of fat than the moderate group. Logically, it doesn't play out. What the researchers' conclusion was that the aggressive group was not able to follow the program. They cheated. And it looks like they cheated a lot over a 14-week period of time.
It looks like they cheated a lot.
So really, this doesn't come down to the actual, the calculus of the program. It comes down to being able to adhere to the program. So it's a psychological thing.
I wonder how that would work if you had two focus groups and they just did what they were supposed to do. The people who went hard, they just went hard. Nothing else, just hard. And the people who went lackluster and moved up, they did theirs. I think if it was that situation, the people who went hard would win.
Oh, I absolutely would agree with that. And just taking the fact that they were consuming almost 1,000 or over 1,000 calories less per day right off the bat, that they were able to adhere to the program, you would assume that they would lose a lot more just over time, just because that calorie deficit is so much larger. But if you're not able to, that's you yourself who were an elite level athlete. You said yourself you cracked. And
so
you cheated and you got mad.
No, that was my problem. My people think cheating was a problem for me, and it wasn't. I just went so hard at everything, like no sugar, no nothing. My thing is this is a SHIT that I'm having to eat, so I'm just going to have it look like SHIT, and I just eat it and just eat it and eat it repetitively to the point where I would just get sick of it, and I would break, and then I would be angry that I broke, and I'd start back, and I would break quicker, and it would become a vicious cycle until like the last 7 weeks of the show, and then I'd dial in, and just lock in, and when I would get ready to break, I'm like, dude, you only got 2 more weeks, and I'm like, all right, you can handle that, but that was the reason why I just went too hard. So I guess in this group study, it seems like I would fare out on the other side of the guys who kind of just tiptoe their way in. Or use that other logic, drop the frog in the cold water and turn it up instead of dropping it in the hot water and having it jump out.
Right. Well, the applicability of this, you're a different case. You're an elite level athlete, but a lot of elite level athletes crack also. My daughter did in her last fight when she, because we were driving the twins to a hockey tournament. And so she was home alone, and we got back, and somehow all the cookies and ice cream sandwiches had disappeared over the weekend.
Wow.
And she looked, you've seen her when she's not even in a camp, how she gets very lean, right? In that weigh-in, she did not look very lean. She made weight. But you could tell she still to this day will not admit to where those cookies and ice cream sandwiches went.
Hey.
But I think the applicability of this, the average
that's
person,
her story, and to stick to it.
She's consistent in that respect. But I think this is the applicability to the general public. We're talking the other 99% of people out there that are in the 1% like you, that or even some of those. Even the 1%ers that are elite level athletes that are trying to, the weight cutter types that have to do it for their sports. I think there's something to be said about, they put it in their study. The best program is the one you can do consistently. And if you can't do it consistently, then there's typically going to be issues.
Yeah.
And in this case, if it is, let's say they had to get down to a certain weight, 3.7, a pound difference, that could be in the UFC, that's the difference between making weight and not making weight, losing 20% of your purse.
I'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
I call up some homies. Oh yeah, we make that happen, dude. Just sit down.
But for, let's say, your neighbor down the street, or, Sheena, or someone along those lines that are just, they're doing it for their self betterment,
Yeah,
or they have a vacation coming up.
yeah.
That's
I'm happy for Sheena. She's back into it, man.
that's it.
Sheena used to have I mean, her. I'm stuttering right now because I'm like, should I say this? But man, her body was everything of Venus, man. And when I met her, she was a little heavier, and she's like, put me on a diet. And I'm like, okay. And it's just when I was in Morgan Hill and she was in LA, so I just wrote her out a diet, and I hadn't seen her in a month, and I'm like, am I looking at the same girl? She responds fast, dude, fast. So
So she's one of the lucky ones.
yeah, and she's always said, she goes, all it takes me a couple of weeks and I'll respond. I'm like, get out of here. Nobody beats me. But yeah, so she bought a couple of equipment, like a real leg press, a leg curl machine, and some other ropes and stuff like that. And she goes, all right, be back in 30 minutes. And it'd just be 30 minutes, and she'd be come back in there dripping, man, just dripping. I'm like, wow. But I know she's gonna be making some great gains. What bothers me is it's one or the other. It's either I'm dialed in 100% and she's not, or she's dialed in and I'm not. So we gotta get a groove on, man. But
Well,
yeah, she's one of those stream responders, man. I mean, her family are pure athletes,
that
pure
also. Oh, so
athletes.
she's lucky. She
Yeah.
got well. Count your blessings with that one, because I don't know if you remember when Chris and I did the same show one year. So we were both, going through prep at the same time. And I just have to keep reminding myself, don't push your luck because she's got a gun and pepper spray. But just throwing that out there. But yeah. But one thing I did want to throw out there, this is obviously, I put our online program. This is the parameters that we utilize in that one. Everything we do is with realistic results in mind and realistic programming. So we know that starting you off with a 1,000-calorie deficit when you're used to eating a lot more is just a recipe for disaster. So we know that we're not trying to go the crazy route. We do, weekly and monthly check-ins to where your weight is updated. We keep track of your programming, how you're doing with the programming. Then when it automatically makes adjustments in even your calories and servings and all that kind of stuff. So I think for the general public, I mean, I don't know, did back in your day, did you know anybody else that just went straight into it like that, or did Kevin and all those guys, did they kind of ease into it, or did they not tell you because they didn't want to give the secrets?
I talk, it's really pissed me off. I would talk to anyone, Achilles, no. I would talk to anyone about my dieting, my supplements, and my training. Everybody just be all ears, man. But when it come time to them to talk to me, everybody be like, "Oh, I gotta go."
Crickets.
Yeah, crickets. But I don't know. I was just watching a podcast where it was me, Chris, and Dennis, and and Milos, and Dennis asked Chris, "Did Flex ever cheat?" And he was like, "Nah, he never cheated." And I was like,
You
"Whatever,
didn't
man. I
know?
told you guys. Yeah, no, I told you guys my diets. You guys wouldn't talk to me about squat, man. You guys weren't trying to help me out at all." But no, it just wasn't. It wasn't something that we really discussed. Now, I know Rico had a different way of dieting that wouldn't work for any of us.
Oh,
Chris was kind of hush hush with his dieting because he worked with Chris. What's his name that used to work at Gold's Gym? Aceto. So
oh,
so he thought he was kind of high class. He didn't want to tell this stuff to me, and I just worked with Neil. But I just discussed everything. It's like, who cares, man? Yeah, this is what I do. So, but yeah, nobody never told me nothing.
well, I know that. I mean, you guys all work with elite coaches, and I'm sure we probably have to put Hani up in there that level and all the high level guys. But I'm assuming they took the mindset of Chris is different from Flex. Flex is different from Ronnie, just not even physically, but mentally also. So I'm sure they took that into account when they when they worked with each person.
Yeah, and especially back then. I mean, like once upon a time, you know, bodybuilders we were treated extremely well. Especially if we went into another country, we might as well have been rock stars.
Hmm,
So whatever we needed as far as eating, they're going to get it for us.
got it.
And there was never a problem with that. They just wanted to cater to us, whatever. Hey, do you need to go to the store? Hey, my buddy, take him to the store. Just get him it and buy it for him too. Don't make him buy it. It was amazing. It was amazing, man. But so yeah, it wasn't fair in those ways, but I just know everybody just got down differently. Like when we would go over in Europe, they would eat such massive amounts of corn, rice, and chicken. It's like a whole bird of chicken there, just eating on it, and the big things of rice. And I'm like, dude, we gonna be a morse butt, and they get out there and they're just full and big, and I'm like, how is that possible? But
Well, I guess even for you, even without going into detail, I can think of three guys that you worked with at a fairly high level, and you got one guy who won Masters Nationals about 10 years ago now.
Stan,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then you got another guy who won the Arnold. Well, name names at this point, and then you
Oh
have a
yeah,
guy in
we
Asia.
will. Oh yeah, we'll name his
Okay,
name.
well, you got Andrew, and then you also have Aiko. I mean,
Yeah,
three different guys in every
yeah,
sense of the
yeah,
word, right?
yeah. And I so my philosophy is my philosophy, and I know it works. And I've tried it against different, like, big men, small men, shape men. I know it works. Um, so the biggest problem was having that apply to Stan. Because I mean he went to school for all this
Right.
kinesiology and all that. I mean, so he knows it's in and out technique on proper squatting, proper eating, and all that. And I'm just like, ah. Like, hey man, this is kind of the way I do it. And he sat down and looked at it, and we talked, and it's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, he goes, I'm not going to sit here and fuss with you, man. You're an expert. I might have went to school for this, but you've done it. We're not going to sit here and waste time and what my thoughts were, and we just did it. And he had a mentality where he can just like focus, and whatever it is that I'm trying to crush him with, he'll just get it, just do it, and just barely be breathing and just grin, the biggest grin on his face, and he's about to pass out. He's just one of those guys. So
And he did a couple of times in the gym, if I remember correctly.
yeah, so when you have a guy with that type of mentality who's willing to have himself pushed to those dimensions, yeah, he's gonna make incredible gains because he's pushing beyond his normal dimensions.
Mhm.
And on top of that, he's enjoying it. He's going to get nothing but growth out of it.
Right.
Versus a person who's kind of fighting, like, I'm not sure. That was kind of like with the Andrew thing. Me training him, and the first time I trained him, like, legs, he just like he couldn't finish the whole set. I was like, man, this is a lot. I'm like, dude, we're not even gotten started yet. And I have him on camera, complaining about, this is too tough, this is too
I think
rough.
I have a video of you and Iris telling him, "Go, go, come on, what are you
Yeah, oh
waiting
yeah.
for?"
And
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 she's just
because
laughing maniacally.
yeah, and because of his whole mentality, he couldn't there's a saying that we have: you have to believe in a system.
Yeah.
You just have to. There can be no doubt, and because when that happens, the brain doesn't go anywhere else but where you need it to get there to help you get there. It's not wondering this. So he just couldn't get himself to fully believe in it. And then later on, I found out that I was never his trainer anyway. That's interesting. But um, and then you had Illico. Um, dude was just like, man, whatever you need me to do, let's get it. And he was just
Right.
simple. He was simple. He had great lines, and we've done some great things together. So I really, but my logic is still my logic on all of them. I know now, based on how their body is designed, I know I might have to focus a little bit more on this and less on that, or I have to focus on all of it. But my analogy is still my analogy, man. We're still banging 20s. We're doing 20s legs, 20s calves, 20s arms, back is 20, all that. And my reason again with all that is because you don't have to then add the aerobic in after it. The muscle is spent. you know um I know there's been a lot of research on if you do so many sets or reps that it can start to decrease muscle size. I would like to invite anybody who believes that way to go to prison with me and watch the type of training that they do. Squatting over and over and over every day, benching every day, arms every day, back every day. Even going to cyclists, the pro spot cyclists. All they do is cycle all day, and they have some of the most explosive legs. Guys in prison are known to have some of the most biggest barrelless chests. So I think at some point, you can break that logic that if you keep
Mhm.
doing this, it's not going to work for you. It will start to work for you. I think, at the end of the day, everyone can change. Great. You're from Alaska. Okay, come over to Vegas. It's going to be a little difficult for you,
Oh, jeez.
but you will change and you will adapt. All right. Just like going over to the East Coast for us, we will change and we will figure out how to dress and adapt. Your body will adapt to whatever you put it into. That's just my firm belief. It's no talking, no babysitting. I don't want to know how your daughters are doing, what you and your wife fought about. No, you get in here with me, it's time to get it, man.
Mhm.
And then it's time to get out.
That was one of my 7 deadly sins of personal trainers, and it turns into too much of a social hour. You waste your money, no matter what the socials become.
Yeah.
But I
So
think the moral of the story here is this is I mean, that the diet parts, I would say, in most sports where you have to cut down for either weight or for body fat, like with bodybuilding, the diet part and the mental aspect of it, that's the hardest. That's probably the hardest part of
yeah,
everything.
the mental part.
You know,
Yeah.
so the slow and easy approach for the general public. I mean, it sounds like Stan would have been fine with the aggressive approach, where Andrew might not have been, or Andrew, my daughter, and a lot of people out there, even though they're elite athletes, they probably would have cracked at some point.
Yeah.
And that was her worst fight of her career, also, by the way. She got a split decision win.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she was by that lot. It's a good thing you didn't come to that one, because originally you were supposed to. But yeah, after first round dominated. Second, third round, I think she just tried to get through it like it was a workout, because she was just spent at that point.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, unfortunately.
Mm.
But now getting into something a little bit more,
Yeah, a
a
little
little
more
more serious.
to it.
So
No,
before I get to,
let's set the guideline for this. No, this is very serious.
yeah,
I think this is extremely serious, and I think there needs to be some overheads to have a conversation with these two young ladies and anyone else like-minded, um, to be disrespectful in that way, because you lost. It's a pure sign that you're a poor loser. As simple as that. And then
taking the route she took.
yeah, when you're angry you're going to try to say the most vile, hateful things that's going to get under that person's skin. And that's what she did, in the words that she said, and tried to put her down. So you want to go ahead and play that tape?
Yeah, well, just before we play the video, this is a early round match at the U.S. Open. It's Jelena Ostapenko, who is a top 32 seed, so she's relatively high ranked. She's from Latvia. She had just lost to Taylor Townsend, who is from the United States, who is a lower ranked. She's in the 100s, so she probably had to even qualify for the U.S. Open. But here's what happened at the end of the match.
Sure, Taylor Townsend ain't for backing down.
Not at all.
Oh. There you go.
No love lost between these two.
Some people say bad things. She told me I have no class, I have no education, and to see what happens when we get outside the U.S. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I beat her in Canada outside the U.S. I beat her in New York outside the U.S. So let's see what else she has to say.
So just a little correction there. Obviously, New York is in the U.S., but she's beaten her twice prior to this situation. So there's probably a little bit of frustration blowing over, getting beaten by a lower ranked player. But this is the world I grew up in, right? And so it is a very, without sugarcoating, it's a very white culture, very rich culture, right? You don't have, it's a culture where you grew up with a lot of privilege.
Yeah.
So just like you said, I don't know, what's your take on the situation? To me, not a big surprise, especially with the Eastern European.
No, I mean, what's most disappointing to me, and I have to look at it in different eyes, or else I'll be personally insulted and then want to say personal things. But it's very sad that at an apex sport, you have athletes still conducting themselves like that and not hiding it. They're out there talking about it where everybody can see your body language and all that. And I think it's just so highly disrespectful. And like she said, she beat her before, she beat her here, she beat her there. What's going to be different? So I feel that some representatives need to get involved, because that can easily boil over into a more heated situation. You could have where family members or fans want to intervene and get involved in that, and that just doesn't have to happen. That's We all know that sign, that person. That's just a sign of a poor loser, and probably she probably does really feel that way, which makes it worse. That she didn't just lose to a black girl, she lost to a black uneducated girl. It probably makes it hurt even more for her. But yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I know I mean, just even look at the history of tennis. You can almost count the number of black players that have done well on, both their hands. Obviously, Venus, Serena come right to mind. Currently, Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka are up there, along with Frances Tiafoe. They were asked during press conferences their thoughts on the situation. Frances and Coco, they took a little bit more of the political route. They said, Jelena is known for this kind of stuff. She has a temper, doesn't have really that off switch, tell her not to say something stupid. Naomi came straight out and basically said pretty much what I think any person of color knows. This person, she went to the worst things that you could say to a black person and a black player to make it hurt the most and to belittle what she'd accomplished.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most profound thing for me, because I know that, like I said, I grew up in tennis clubs. I was the person of color, and I was, as a Japanese guy, I was there with a bunch of white kids and a bunch of white families, and there was, it goes into everything. What you drove up, what kind of car you drove up in.
Yeah,
It
what
couldn't
kind
even
of
be.
racket you have, what kind of
Yep.
sneakers you wearing, yeah, what kind of bag you got, what kind of balls you got, yeah.
Right, and then if you ever seen, King Richard, which won Will Smith an Oscar, If you look at that whole story, I mean, he was teaching Venus and Serena on public courts in Compton, trying to avoid the gang members and getting shot or getting beat up. And that's what created that story, which is a huge, awesome story. But it's not the typical, because he had to work his way into the tennis clubs with the big name coaches to try to get them opportunities, no matter how talented they were. This is an exclusive sport, and now you're looking at someone using that against a person of color, which I mean, you know me politically, that absolutely sucks. That shows the worst. To me, that is the worst inhumanity. That is just, at this point, I don't think I ever would. I mean, you go back 10, 15 years, even before Venus and Serena, you had Zena Garrison, you had
Arthur Ashe,
and Malachi Washington, and they were there. I'm sure Arthur probably has some stories, but he was just such a gentleman. He just let it go and he moved past it. But I don't ever remember any of these stories coming out back then. I just don't know if it's something that's our current, this is going to probably get me in trouble with our type of fan base, but it seems like right now this kind of thing has become more acceptable to be just throw out there.
No, I think that's the situation. I think it always had been. I mean, if you want to go back to how Black people were treated when they were first brought here, it was never anything great, and we made strides and strides. Just being able
no
to
matter
read.
what Jillian Michaels might want to say.
Jeez, gosh, yeah, right. She's the biggest loser. We accomplished some things with truly being on the wrong side of the railroad. The things that we accomplished, owning business, getting educated, having people invent these amazing things, help get us into space and stuff like that. But back then it wasn't publicized on the radio or anything like now. So, or you don't have just a person with a camera back then videotaping someone. So I know it's always been bad, and even worse, probably people lost their life. And I know people lost their lives. I know cities have disappeared, whereas Black flourishing businesses and stuff like that. It's just now, I think, let me give you an example. Like when we first heard of kids getting shot up in school, everybody was in uproar, and then it happened again, and it happened at this school. And now when it happens, it's like, oh gosh, another one. So you kind of dumb down to it. You're used to it. So I think the hate, it's so prevalent now. It's all over TV. It's all over the internet. You're just like, okay, there it goes again. But I think the people who are being persecuted can't have that mind frame. We must stand up, stand tall, and right that wrong immediately, every time. We can't let it go on and on and on. And yeah, it's just, yes, I tell you what, that's one of the greatest things that I've always known about bodybuilding is we never had those problems. Was it like a little racial cliques in bodybuilding? I'm sorry, it's little racial cliques and families, man. So of course it was, but we didn't look at it. We didn't never look at an athlete and say he's from here, we're not going to like him. You're just accepted, bro. If you got muscles and you want to get down, let me see you get down. If you can get down, hey, Duke can get down. And he's just respected for that. I remember going all over the Middle East. I remember in '93, I did like 88 appearances globally, and I was absolutely everywhere. And I remember the thing that I was astonished about the most is people would just come up to me and shake my hand and greet me. They wouldn't look at me as a Black athlete. They wouldn't look at me as just a Black person or a bald-headed Black person. It would be flex. And it was pure. And I got to stand with athletes, from England and China and the Middle East, and we never looked over at that person and called him a so-and-so or this or that. He's just like, it's another guy, man, we got to beat. And I think that's just the most beautifulest thing about our sport. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing that way. Now, again, I'm not saying there's not racism in bodybuilding. Of course there is. There's people in it. They bring it to it, right? But nah, not to that level at all.
Yeah, I think you're kind of talked about how responding to it. I want to play another clip. This is a fan got this video. This is how Taylor responded to Jelena after what she had just said. I think if you're going to show, I remember what Jackie Robinson had to go through, right? If you're going to show a sportsman grown up way to handle the situation, she just embodied it.
Yeah. Wow.
With a
That's the
smile on her
maturity.
face too, which probably was a little bit of a rub in the wound.
Yeah.
But
But
you could
that's
tell it wasn't what Jelena was expecting.
no. And that's a very mature response during a very heated situation. Yeah,
In
she
front of
needs
the
to,
world.
yeah, she needs to be commended for that because I mean, you know, Black people, Italian people, Hispanic people, we're known to be hot sauce. You mess with us, and we're going to be vocal and all over you about it. So for her to be that way, that shows that she has a great degree of education and restraint. Where the other girl, you can even tell by the other girls, her antics, her body language, and all that. Gosh, well, I got to be me. She just comes across so privileged, just in her actions and everything, but yeah, I hope they do better. And I hope some federation or some spokesperson, acknowledges this and puts that to bed because we don't need that. We don't need that in our sports. We don't need that in any of our sports. I mean, at the highest level, are you kidding? Imagine being at the Olympia and third place is from the Middle East and people start giving hell. What? I mean, there's been times where we've been at shows and we have a what is it called? Vote for your most liked athlete on
Oh yeah.
stage, and it would be a Middle Eastern. And we don't care about that. We're not into that. So I hope something is done and they just don't let this simmer.
I just my take on most of this right now, just in every sport. I think I told you about when the girls were on a away trip, again, hockey I think we're in Colorado or Texas, but they have a Black girl on their team who's one of their defensemen. The N word was used on her multiple times during the games. They have there's actually quite a few Asians on their team, but another girl told one of their teammates, "Please don't eat my dog," as a taunt. And these are, at that point, 14-year-old girls. They were taught that somewhere.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And then even now, going the other route, I was called a racist online because I said I was not an Angel Reese fan from the WNBA. Nothing about her is likable to me. Just like nothing was likable about who's a white player. I was never a big Larry Bird fan. I thought he was an excellent player, but I was not a Larry Bird fan. I was a Magic fan.
Yeah.
But because now there's a whole Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese dichotomy going on. If you like Angel Reese, you're on the right side. If you like Caitlin Clark, you're a white racist MAGA Trump supporter somehow.
White.
So it just seems like I'm just wondering how sports have got to the point where it's been weaponized on a racial level to this extent now.
It has always been. It has always been. It was just like what Arthur asked. It has always been. He always took the higher road and was a gentleman when he wasn't amongst gentlemen. And then you have maybe that happened to another person, and he's going to go there with you. And then he's going to be look like the bad person. So it has always been that way in sports. It's just, you know, before things were said under people's breath or just around certain people. Now it's just being said out loud, and it's been being said on camera. People just think they have a right to speak their voice, you know. And I'm of the opinion you do have a right to speak your voice, you know. But I have a right to respond to your voice, you know. Also, but that's just what's going on now. It must have been so much worse. I remember Jack Johnson. Every time he beat a white guy, they hung black people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how much worse was that?
Yeah.
Yet he still kept whooping him. He kept whooping him. And he was dating a white woman, and they wanted to kill him for that. You know, but every time this man knocked out a white man, black people got hung. So, Greg, it's always been this way. I'm sure if we could pull up some old timers who were played back then, the stories they could tell us, but they probably just like let it go over their head because they had a bigger thing to do. If they fell down and got with those guys on the floor, then the sport would have stopped. But because they control their mannerism, you know, it's black people in sports now. But
I know Jackie Robinson was getting death threats constantly.
Oh yeah,
just to show up.
yeah.
I know Hank Aaron, as he approached Babe Ruth's record, the FBI had to be involved. And I know the day he broke the record, when those two fans ran on the field to go and congratulate them, they were really like, I know he said he was a little bit worried what they were going to do. But in the grander scheme of things, to get this worked up over racial tensions over sports, which you and I both love in general, that is, to me, just kind of signals a downfall of humanity as an experiment.
Bro, I'm sorry to break it to you, but you know, we're living on our worst times ever now, you know.
And we've had the dark ages already.
We're there. We're in them. I as a parent, I'm constantly grappling with my thoughts on how bad it's going to be for my kids and my kids' kids. I mean, even though they won't know of our world and our privileges, they'll still know that they're in a different realm of madness. And yeah, it's scary. It's absolutely scary. But
what I do love about what Taylor did, though, is I know a lot of people poo-poo the whole idea, but representation does matter. And I know that Venus and Serena had to have inspired how many tons of young black girls to look at different types of sports to play.
Sure.
Right. And to not be afraid to go out there and show your deltoids, because Serena and Venus, they look like specimens anyway, right?
Yeah, they changed the whole wardrobe of the way they dress.
Some of them were a little questionable, I will say that. I didn't like all their outfits, but that's their prerogative. But the way that Taylor handled this situation, I hope a lot of girls, black, white, yellow, whatever, saw the way she handled it, and that's how a professional should have done it.
Yeah, kudos to her. I gotta find her Instagram page and send her a message.
I'm sure it probably blew up after this whole thing.
Yeah, but
I'm sure Ostapenko's blew up in a different way. Actually, did. I already checked.
Well, as you could see, as Ostapenko was walking away, her body language to the crowd and the crowd's body language towards her versus the opposite, you know. So
well, that part did make me feel a little bit better. The way that the New York international crowd reacted to that situation, because they saw what happened live, right? And they were. I mean, I couldn't imagine it would have been less than 99 to 99.9% of them were on Taylor Townsend's side on that situation.
Yeah.
Whether they liked her or not, they knew that she handled that perfectly, and it was uncalled for in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we're not doomed 100% yet.
We're doomed, dude. It's over.
Just
Put a stake in it. Put a stake in it. Well, all right. There you have it. Another segment of Flex for Life with my homie home, Greg over there, my main man. I'm sure you guys have all heard of this before, but absolutely everything that I'm involved in, I have Greg there. He's either my president or vice president, and everything that I do. His daughters are like my little nieces. I just want to put this out there for the people who haven't heard me say it before, but man, I appreciate you greatly, bro. We met, in a very interesting and innocent time, a long time ago, and start talking about doing a little this and a little that together, and we got closer as a family, and look at that, here we are now again, so man, you always got to have somebody in your corner, man, somebody to straighten you out, which you've done plenty of times on camera and off camera. And someone that that you can trust if things go bad, like if I am in a coma or something like that. I know that I can not overly be worried about my consciousness, because I know everything's going to be taken care of, right? And I know if you don't, then your wife is really going to be on top of you about that. So, and
she's gonna
Neely, yeah, and the twins, all of them like that. What are you doing? Stop it.
I'm outnumbered.
But all right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. You guys have an incredible weekend, and we'll see you guys again.